Hey guys, it's Paul from 16Snail here with a new install video today. Today I'm going to be doing a pitch mount. I'm going to be installing the Grocery Getter Performance pitch mount. Reason being, this one uses a new bolt instead of the stock steel bolt on the aluminum bracket, so that will help with corrosion over time and stuff like that. So we're going to be installing that today. The tools that you're going to need really aren't anything crazy. I'll show you the tools. All right, so the tools that you're going to need besides the pitch mount, obviously, is you're going to need a 10 millimeter to get the 10 millimeter bolts for the under tray off. You're going to need a pick tool to get some of the little plastic tabs, the retainer clips underneath. You're going to need a breaker bar with a 22 millimeter on it for some of the bolts, and also a 14 for the other front bracket part of the bolts. For this specific install, since we're not going to be reusing one of the 22 millimeter bolts, I also need two 24 millimeter sockets for the new bolt, the bracket bolt that's going to go through the Grocery Getter Performance piece. And then you're also going to need a torque wrench just to make sure that you are torquing your bolts to spec. These bolts aren't going to use torque specs that are from the OEM bolts. You're going to use some different specs, so I'll go over that after. All right, so the next step is going to be get your car up on some low profile race ramps. I got a low profile jack as well, because you're going to need to jack up the front end of the car. Underneath there is a jack mount point right in the center back there. I'll get a little bit better of an angle and show you guys exactly where to jack that up to be able to put it on jack stands. Make sure that you have your car in first gear and that you have the emergency brake up. Safety first though, don't forget a wheel chock. Let's go jack the front of this car up. All right, so you see that bolt right there? Right there, that's the bolt that we're going to be using to jack the car up, or the mount point that we're going to use to jack the car up. So I'm going to put my low profile jack on that, jack up the front right there, and then we're going to get it on some jack stands. For me, I like to use these polyurethane bushing things so that way when I am putting it on the pinch welds and stuff, I'm protecting my car by not putting metal on metal. You can get a full set of these with the 4 jack stands. It also comes with some round ones for your jacks, for all your jack points and stuff, off of Amazon for like 20 bucks or something. Highly suggest getting some of those to keep your car nice. Got one of my co-workers, Harper, here. She's gonna make sure that the jack is on the right point so we can jack the front end of this car up and get it on some jack stands. Say hi, Harper. Wave. There you go. All right, you got the front of the end of the car all jacked up on jack stands. Highly recommend those Megan Racing race ramps. They really help with getting the front of the car up high enough to get the low profile jack underneath there for the jack points. All right, on to taking the under tray off. Okay, underneath here, you're gonna remove this under tray. You got some push clips all the way around. For the most part, they're little push clips. And then you have some 10 millimeters that you're gonna have to take off in the front that kind of attach it to that front more plastic under skid plate. One thing to note is you will have to take this little clip out. That should give you 10 of these retainer clips and then 4 10 millimeter screws in the front here. You should be able to slide this under tray right out. All right, with the under tray out, you can see this beautifully engineered piece of machinery. We're gonna take these 14 millimeter bolts out. We're gonna loosen up this 22 millimeter. This is the bolt that we're gonna be replacing with a stainless steel bolt that has a friction-based lock nut on it. It's gonna be torqued to 80 foot-pounds. And then we're gonna remove this 22 millimeter bolt right here. We're gonna be reusing that. That's gonna get torqued to 80 foot-pounds as well because of the metal bushing that's in the center of the bushings. All right, so let's go break these loose with a breaker bar. All right, once you broke these loose with the breaker bar, you can go ahead and just start taking out the bolts. I did crack this one loose with this bolt still in there, because I feel like this would be really hard to crack loose once it's out. So we'll go ahead and we'll loosen all these up, and then we'll take the stock pitch mount out and we will swap it out with the Grocery Getter Performance one. All right, so you can see here, now that we got the stock one out, you can see that there's already cracks. Now, mind you, my car has just over 5,000 miles on it. It's a 23, but just over 5,000 miles. You can see the stock bushing's already cracked. So that's one of the reasons why you're going to want to replace it with an aftermarket pitch mount. 16snail.com. We have Grocery Getter Performance. We have the 6-element one. We have the Racer X one. So we have a bunch of different options. I went with the Grocery Getter Performance. One of the reasons is, you see this stainless steel bolt replacement for the center bolt. For orientation, I put the nut on the same side where you have your threads on your bracket, so that way the bolt's facing the same way as far as orientation goes. And this uses a friction-based lock nut, so once you get it on there, it's not going anywhere. And I went with the 70A durometer bushing, a little bit more stiff than the 60A for regular street use. They also have a higher durometer for track use. I'm kind of in between because I do some spirited driving, you know, as well as it just being a fun car for me, and you know, and a performance car that I take to meets and stuff. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to swap out this piece onto the Grocery Getter Performance. We're going to torque this down a little bit, going to get it underneath the car, and then we'll start reassembling everything and torquing the bolts down. Like I said, this bolt right here, and then your other 22 millimeter that's going to mount through here, that one's going to be 80 foot-pounds. So 80 foot-pounds here, 80 foot-pounds here. For this specific pitch mount, the torque specs may differ. Sometimes if they reuse the OEM bolts, you know, in all the places, then they may have different torque specs. They may want you to go back to closer to factory. But again, one of the reasons why this is 80 foot-pounds is because of this piece right here and how strong and stiff that is. You don't need as much torque behind that. And these bolts that go onto underneath your motor, these are going to be 32 foot-pounds. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to put these in, and then we'll do our torquing, and we'll see how it bolts in. All right, here we go. Out with the old and in with the new. Keep in mind, arrows up, you want that facing up. Pretty self-explanatory, but it's really good that they put some idiot-proof markings on this. You also are going to have your torque specs right there on the side. Really awesome that Grocery Getter Performance does that, because the torque specs are slightly different. So let's torque this up and get this installed underneath the car. All right, so I got everything on here hand tight. We're going to go ahead and start torquing these bolts. These are going to be torqued to 32. This bolt's going to be 80 for this pitch mount, and this is going to be 80 foot-pounds of torque for that mounting bolt as well. I'm going to go ahead and torque that, and then we'll button it up and we'll see how it feels. All right, we got all the bolts torqued down. 32 foot-pounds, 80 foot-pounds on that, 80 foot-pounds on this 22. Don't forget, if you go with the GGP, this bolt is replaced with a 24 millimeter stainless steel bolt with a friction-based lock nut, so that's not going anywhere. Torque down to 80 foot-pounds. I use a torque wrench on this side with a short impact 24 millimeter because you don't have a ton of space in between the clearance here. And then I just used a regular ratchet with a 24 millimeter on this side till I got my 80 foot-pounds of torque. And we're good to go to put the under tray on and see how it feels. Easiest way to put this under tray back on is to slide it underneath the front part right here. Slide it underneath there so it lines up. And then come back here and put some of your push clips in the back to hold the back up. And then the front supported by the overhang of that front like plastic lip protector. And then you can start to put all the rest of your clips in, and don't forget about the 4 10 millimeter bolts in the front. One other thing to note is when you take this side push pin out, these plastic pieces are going to want to pop out a little bit. So you'll see, you'll be like, oh hey, why is it not lining up? But all you got to do is push this in again, so that way everything lines up. Put your push pin through.
Don't forget to remove the chocks if you chock your rear wheels. You don't want to be running over that. Alright, we're taking this for a spin. I will say, this is supposed to improve first to second shifting because it keeps everything a lot more aligned. Let's see how that feels. I will say, I do feel less flexibility. I have some other suspension mods and stuff, and I have the 6-element shifter bushings. I got the Racer X lateral shift linkage coming, so that's a new install video that'll be coming up soon. A pitch mount really is one of the first things that you should do to these cars. I should have done this much sooner than I did other things, but I'm lazy and I procrastinate. But that said, again, I'll go over the stock pitch mount and I'll show you why in a minute. You definitely want to upgrade to an upgraded pitch mount. You want to do it. The stock one's cracked. It's kind of crazy. Again, 5,000 miles on this car, and mine's already cracked. So we'll take a look at that. I'm going to drive this around a little bit longer. My verbal tune anyway, so, you know, I want to hear that. But we're really going to see how the shifts feel, how they line up, make sure it's nice and smooth. And I'll be back to you with the review of that and show you the stock pitch mount so you can see what I'm talking about. Alright, so my sweaty ass is back. Probably messed up my 1/6 snail shirt rolling around in my driveway doing this, but you can grab some sick 1/6 snail shirts on our website. We have shirts that match your GR Corolla color. We also carry stuff for the Supra and the GR86, so we're very GR focused with what we do. Started out, you know, doing all stuff for the GR Corolla. But that said, I mean, the most noticeable difference for me was first through third, especially on downshifts. You know, it's definitely a lot more tight. I feel the motor moving around less for sure. Even with the 70A, I know people are worried about vibration and stuff, but with the mid-grade bushing, I really didn't feel like it was harsh. So for me, I think the 70A, even for a daily driver, would be great. You want to go a little bit softer, go with the 60. But I like the 70A. Then when you're doing some spirited driving on the back roads, you'll have a little bit more rigidity there. So, like I was saying before, if you look at the stock pitch mount, let's take a look at that. So again, stock pitch mount, 5,350 miles on my car. Look at all the cracks in that. It's just, I mean, that could be, some of this might just be from where it was molded. But, I don't know, yeah, that looks like just thin spots from where it was molded, but it's pretty dry. Just not the quality that you want from a stock bushing. So, again, go to 16snail.com. You can pick up a couple of different options for your pitch mount. If you have questions on installing, you can always email me, sourcing@16snail.com. That's going to be it for this video. It's really a simple install. I did it on jack stands, and I will tell you, okay, on jack stands in a driveway, I did it at the end of my driveway where it's level, but I didn't jack up the rear. So it does make it so that way, obviously, you go put the new pitch mount in, everything's a little shifted.
So I'd suggest putting the car up on 4 jack stands. I was able to do it with just the front being jacked up. It's just kind of a pain getting that center 22 millimeter bolt back in through the pitch mount bushing. I kind of had to hold it with my hand up so that way it was flush after I put the front 14 millimeters in, and make sure everything was hand tight and was tightening in and threading great. And then I bolted it all up and torqued it down. It should be good to go. You can do it that way. Again, in hindsight, I'd probably jack up the entire car. But you know the deal. Go to 16nail.com, grab your pitch mount, drive fast, take chances.